Same Gish Galloper, different day. So what was the cause that started the very first universe that ever existed? You're just pushing back to the timeline, but my argument remains valid. The universe collapsed and created the next universe. This is the assertion he thinks I'm doing. He's strawmanning me. And that collapsed and created another. Eventually you're going to go back to the very first universe to ever exist, and that would require a first cause that cannot be explained. My response was, it can be, but why would you... When I point out something about what we've discovered about how the universe exists currently and how it probably started, people then say, you're saying that the universe came from nothing. No, I didn't. Yes, you are. And then it becomes a yes, you are argument. Basically trying to shove this down. So what I said is, okay, well, if you want to know what could happen, the request was, what could happen before the universe started? The simplest answer is that this universe, like the previous one, could have been a universe that compacted, became from matter, highly compressed, converted straight to energy, which doesn't have to have gravitational pull hold it in, and exploded and formed a new universe, and this just keeps happening over and over again. That's called a closed universe model. It's one of the simplest ones, but current evidence doesn't give us enough matter to cause it to crunch back together again. So it's an open universe. It expands and then goes cold and dark and never occurs again. But if it was a closed universe, then it would mean it's a cyclic or a repeating or a dying and rebirthing universe. I don't really care whether it is or not. That's not really something I have to worry about in my lifespan, and honestly it doesn't affect the tea in China, but that makes more sense than most of what anybody has asked about, and I don't know why you have a problem with that. But that would literally mean that you have a universe that, yeah, it could have a first cause, but that's not what we're discussing. Also, the other assertion will be, well, if the universe was empty, nobody's saying that. People strawman scientists all the time, but let's listen to some strawmanning. And gish galloping mixed in with a little tea and crumpets. Eventually you're going to go back to the first universe to ever exist, and that will require first cause that can't be explained. So in order to believe in a godless universe, I'm not making that assertion, nor are scientists. There's no reason for you to come up with this, and of course you're doing this so you can then create another tangent, so I have another thing this is called keeping an idiot busy. I haven't made that assertion. I'm stating factually that religions avoid proving what they say about a god or anything else because they want to be immune from having to prove things. This is the first tenet of cults. I don't have to prove my point to you. It's already known. It's an accepted fact. We're in America. We're a Christian country when we're not. Next. And we never were, by the way. So in order to believe in a godless universe, you must believe in a beginning of time for the very first universe. Nothing created itself from nothing for no other reason than pure randomness. In an empty universe, an empty set, randomness occurs because in the observable universe, the expansion of the universe isn't even. Like an atom bomb going off, making all sorts of weird shapes. If you look at the first millisecond of an atomic bomb blast, the universe is not evenly distributed the way it's pressured and moving, and it's not even and flat. It's not smooth. It's got wrinkles in it. And on a grand scale, if you want to look at some of the models, it looks like it's twisted a bit here and there, like a puff of smoke when someone's smoking a cigarette. It doesn't have uniform distribution of anything, which means that randomness that you're seeing would cause distortions and pulls and tensions in the universe that would cause matter to form, because at that point that's a form of energy that could create matter. Because we can cause energy to create matter, just not directly, not as easily, but it can happen, and it does. So it's not something from nothing, it's something transmuting from one to the other. But there's no assertion that the universe is empty in the beginning. There's none of this going on. You're making these assumptions. You're claiming that everything came from nothing. No, I'm not. No one has made that claim at all. You're using that argument because you're losing that argument. But anyway, here we go. Do you honestly think that the first piece of physical matter in the universe just randomly, spontaneously created itself? No, I don't assume the first piece of matter, like a quark or a mu meson, had self-determination and decided to exist. You made that before in the previous video. I had to comment on that. Because that's what you have to believe in a godless model. There is no way of getting around it. No, there isn't in your universe, because you're going to create literally a universe to put me into, a world, a straw man, a set of constraints where in order for the universe not to work the way you want it to, which for you is just that there's no God, it would have to have all these things going on. I'm not making the assertions there's no God. I'm stating factually, and I have proven this, that you failed to prove there's a God, or you failed, and you've also failed to prove that you paid attention to anything I've said, and you have proven that you do nothing but gish galloping and straw manning. And the thing is, the reason I don't mention this person's name is this applies to a bunch of people who've been doing this. Some of them are like, "Are you talking about me?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not. I might be. Don't do that." And a couple of them are like, "Okay, I won't," because it does actually sound stupid, because it isn't aimed at them. And the one person it's aimed at, you know damn good and well who you are. But anyway, here we go. So anyway, you keep pushing the goalposts back and back and back. At some point, there is the very first event in history of all of the universes that ever existed, and in your model, the very first universe had to appear like magic. No, yours does, because you're claiming the magician was God and he created it by thinking it up. Period. I'm not claiming that the universe existed magically. There is a mechanism by which the universe could happen. You asked which one, and the most likely one that I know of that might work is that the universe repeatedly expands, slows down, recompresses, compacts, destroys everything, starts over, and sometimes doesn't even have the same physical laws exactly, and that would require that it basically resonate or repetitively rebuild itself over and over again, birth and death over and over again. A reincarnated universe, if you want. That one makes some sense, and it actually has some basis in something we can understand, and it's as good an explanation as any. I'm not saying that it's the one. I'm just saying that your explanation, God did it, is inadequate, not proven, and has no basis in any facts, and anytime anything comes up that contradicts it, people like you get angry because you claim science is trying to disprove God, or religion. So here we go on with the next of it. And don't act as if science is not biased against God, because you know it is. No. It's that you found out that scientists and science show that most of the assertions in the Bible are simply wrong. It's nothing else. It's like goblins don't exist because they can't. Transmutation to a werewolf doesn't work because it can't. Because that's not how things work. Because it simply does not. That doesn't mean that I'm trying to disprove your werewolf theory. It's that it isn't factually based in anything. And your assertion that there's a God that magically created the universe is a poor substitute for what we observe in the universe, telling us probably how it started. And nobody makes the assertion that they know that this is how it started. The only people who make the assertion that they know for a fact how the universe started is somebody who keeps reading the same book over and over again and comes up with new interesting things to argue about on the net. Anyone who's ever gone to a modern-day university to talk about God, and you will get laughed and mocked, and your professor is going to shit-can you. And you know this is true. No. If you're in a physics class and you invoke God because you don't want to do the equation, I'm going to give you an F. I've taught a couple of college classes. When we get a proselytizer in, I explain to him, if you want to study religion, that's fine, but you're not allowed to proselytize. You're not here to save anybody from burning in hell. You're here to learn something. And if you're not here to learn something, get out. I say that to anybody. These people in the room have paid money to learn something. You're interfering with that because you will not stop arguing about things that are not on the table that day. If you want to have these debates, go someplace else. Philosophy class or religion. I went to a college that had religion classes. Comparative religions and theology classes. That's where you do this. You don't do this in a chemistry class. You don't know what you're talking about. You're incompetent. That's it. You're out. And I've actually had to help walk somebody out because they were screaming about aliens. You know, I consider it not the same thing, but pretty close because it's still off topic. You keep saying I'm bringing up biblical arguments. You just did. Along with claiming that Donald Trump is something of a messiah. In fact, the only thing I said about the Bible is that the 777 is the biblical number, which it is. It isn't. Pi is a number that shows up in the universe, and the equation for an ellipse describes orbits of planets. Those are much more significant than you deciding 777, which is aesthetically pleasing and numerologically interesting, is important. It is not important. It's not a sign of any kind. I'm not even sure, but I'm pretty sure it's not even a phone area code. Next. Energy has to be created. It does not just randomly come into existence. However, when you claim that the universe is an empty thing that started this, it would. because an empty universe, as it expands, because that's what we're observing, would cause tension throughout the universe and would cause the formation of matter, is the assertion I made. I'll look up the hypothesis about it, but I'll go ahead and bring it up. It's part of string theory. I don't like string theory, but okay, but you're the one making this claim. I didn't. You're the one making this argument. You're dragging it into that instead of admitting that Trump is not a messiah. Trump says things that are not true, refuses to provide proof, that appeals to you greatly, and bullies people. And then he uses his cult of personality thing to get a bunch of fervent viewers and lovers to follow him and worship him. And that's the description of the Antichrist, almost. I'm not saying he's the Antichrist. Excuse me, I got to do it. I'm not saying he's the Antichrist. But he fits a better bill than... Oh no, actually all politicians fit that. I forgot. The original Antichrist story is actually about Nero, who was a politician. Next. Energy has to be created. It's not randomly come to existence. And and again, no one made that assertion. But randomness in an empty universe would actually have this happen because it's enormous, and it would happen statistically. You don't like that answer? It doesn't matter. Let's say multiverse or multiple dimensions exist. Multiple dimensions already do exist. That's something that's not a supposition. Multi-universe, well then the previous universe would be parallel with us and be working back and forth. It's just a different way of looking at it. And let's say energy randomly comes in from those places in our universe. No. Because then we would be able to detect the other universes as other echoes at different angles. We don't have the ability to detect that, and we've been looking, because that would be a sure sign. You can look up a video, Veritasium or somebody did, how to detect a parallel universe, and why we haven't. That's something that actually can be hypothesized about. We haven't detected that, because that would cause disruptions in time-space and pluck the strings of reality. And they're not being plucked, and that harp isn't firing off for you. And then you say, if it came from another universe, then they had to be created as well. It's very simple. Cause and effect. Godless universe theory is just silly. I didn't say a godless universe. The universe doesn't require a God to exist, except we pushed it back by detecting things and learning that a God would only need to exist to cause the universe to exist in the first place. And more importantly, my little statement that really bothered you is that it could have been done by literally just hitting the tuning fork and letting it go and seeing what happens. What would be more interesting to a God? Creating the conditions that would cause an infinite array of completely random universes and watch them happen, like watching a top spin? Or sitting there and manipulating things so that you had Trump win? I'm sorry, but I'd like to think God has better things to do than mess with the annoying orange and make sure he's in the White House. One of us has an imagination that is extremely specific and limited, and the other is making this video. Thanks for watching, have a good day, and I wish you a great deal of luck with that.